Hello kiddo, and welcome back to day 7 of our 12 Days of Christmas holiday books. Today's story is one that I hadn't actually read until this year, at the ripe old age of... I wonder, have you heard this story before? It's called The Elves and the Shoemaker, and it's full of magic and joy. Are you comfy and cozy? Okay, let's get stuck in. The Elves and the Shoemaker. Once upon a time, a shoemaker and his wife lived above a small shoe shop. Although the shoemaker worked hard and made very beautiful shoes of many kinds, they were very poor. "I'm afraid we're going to be bankrupt by Christmas, my dear," said the shoemaker to his wife, "unless a miracle happens." One day the shoemaker found that he had only enough money left to buy leather to make one pair of shoes. He cut the leather out carefully and left the pieces on his workbench before going upstairs to bed. The next morning, when the shoemaker went to his workbench, he could hardly believe his eyes. There on the bench where he'd left the leather was the prettiest pair of shoes he had ever seen. He peered at them more closely. The stitches were neat and tiny. The shoes had been beautifully made. Still muttering in amazement, he put the shoes in the shop window. That morning, a very rich lady happened to be passing by. She saw the shoes in the window and immediately rushed inside. "I simply must have these shoes," she cried, and she bought them on the spot. "Shoes like this are worth more than you are asking, my man," she declared. "Please take this extra payment as well." So that afternoon, the shoemaker was able to buy enough leather for 2 pairs of shoes. Just as before, he cut out the leather and left it on his bench overnight. The next morning, the same extraordinary thing happened. 2 pairs of beautifully made shoes were standing there. The shoemaker put them in his window and had sold them to a passing merchant before the morning was out. And so it went on. Every day the shoemaker was able to buy more leather to cut out more shoes, and every morning, no matter how much work he had left the night before, he found rows of perfectly made shoes on his workbench. Soon the poor shoemaker and his wife were 2 of the wealthiest people in town. One night just before Christmas, the shoemaker's wife spoke to him. "We still don't know who's helping us in this way. Why don't we stay up tonight and hide in your workroom? Then we'll see what happens." So that night, the shoemaker and his wife hid behind the counter and waited quietly. At midnight, the door opened, and 2 of the strangest little people came running in. They were elves, with bare feet and ragged clothes. They ran straight to the bench and began to work. In no time at all, they had finished sewing shoes from the cut leather. Then they ran away as quickly as they had come. The next morning, the shoemaker said to his wife, "I've been thinking, my dear, surely we should do something to thank those little men. But whatever could it be?" "Didn't you notice how raggedy their clothes were?" asked the wife. "And their feet were bare, even in this cold weather. Let's make them some little clothes and shoes to wear." The shoemaker thought that this was an excellent idea. For a whole week, he and his wife cut and sewed until on Christmas Eve, they had finished at last. They wrapped up the little costumes and put them on the workbench. Then they hid once more to see what would happen. At midnight, the little elves ran in as before. But how surprised they were to see presents instead of leather on the workbench. Laughing and chattering, they opened the packages and were overjoyed with what they found inside. At once they put on their little suits and the tiny shoes and socks that the shoemaker and his wife had made. They danced around with happiness and they sang in their tiny voices.
"We look so fine, as you can see. We need no longer cobblers be."
And with that, they skipped out the door. But the elves never did return to the shoemaker's shop. But perhaps they had left some of their magic behind, for the shoemaker and his wife were happy and wealthy for the rest of their lives. Wonderful, another story about joy and love and giving, and a little sprinkle of magic too. We'll see you tomorrow for a very busy story at Mr. and Mrs. Moore's full house. See you then. Bye.